Warmly welcome to one and all. Here is the Sudesh Ashok Dakve from SY Civil Engineering Department. I am presenting the presentation on environmental studies and my topic is that energy flow in the ecosystem, ecological succession, food chains, food webs and ecological pyramids. First of all, we are seeing the first point energy flow in the ecosystem. Energy flow in ecosystem one of the significant variable that support the survival of the such a large number of creators in is the energy flow in the ecosystem. A network of links between the living and non-living components make up an ecosystem. Ecological energetics is the study of the movement of energy through an ecosystem. The sun provides all the energy that living beings requires. Even still green energy plant merely absorb around 1% of total radiant energy for distribution across the ecosystem. Despite its small size, the quantity is adequate to maintain all life on Earth. Continue reading the articles to describe the energy flow in an ecosystem. Here is the diagram for energy flow in the ecosystem. Solar here is the include solar energy, producer, primary consumers, secondary consumers, and remaining the dead materials. Next, uh, first is the producer. It is also known as autotrophs. And autotrophs is an organism that can produce its own food using light, water, carbon dioxide, or other chemicals. Because autotrophs produce their own food, they are sometimes called producers. Next, consumer. It is also known as heterotrophs. A heterotroph is an organism that eats other plants or animals for energy and nutrients. The terms stem for the Greek word hetero for others and tropes for nourishment. Third is decomposer. Decomposers are organisms that break down dead or decaying organisms that carry out decomposition, a process possible by only certain kingdoms such as fungi. Next point, ecological succession. Ecological succession is the process of change in the species structure of an ecological community over time. The time scale can be decade or more or less. It is an process by which an ecological community undergoes more or less ordinarily and predictable changes following distribution or the initial colonization of a new habitat. Succession may be initiated either by formation of new unoccupied habits such as former lava flow or several landsides, or by some form of disturbance of a community such as from fire, sewer withdrawals, or logging. Here is the example of the succession after disturbance. Boreal forest 1 year and 2 years after a wildfire. Next point, food chains, food webs, and ecological pyramids. First point is that food chains. The producer, consumers, and decomposer of each ecosystem make up a food chains. There are many food chains in an ecosystem. Food chain shows the energy is transferred and not who it had who. In each transfer, some energy is lost. Therefore, the shorter the food chains, the greater the energy available to population. Here is the two types of food chains, the grazing food chains and the detritus food chains. First is the grazing food chains. This type of food chain starts from the green plants base goes to grazing herbivorous and on carnivores. Second is the detritus eroded food chains, which goes from living organic matter into microorganism and then to detritus feeding organism and their predators. Next point, here is the diagram for food chains. Here is include the producer, after that primary consumer, secondary consumer, tertiary consumer, final consumer. It is all food chains. Next point, food webs. A food web is the natural interconnection of food chains and a graphical representation of what eats what is an ecological community. Another name for food webs is consumer resource system. Ecologists can broadly lump all life form into one of two categories called trophic levels, the heterotrophs, the heterotrophs. A food webs is a complicated system of relationship between plants, animals, and energy. Next point is that ecological pyramids. A pyramid usually used to illustrate the structure of the trophic level in a food chains. There are three types of ecological pyramids. First is pyramids of numbers, energy pyramid, and biomass pyramid. First of all, pyramids of numbers. A pyramid of numbers shows graphically the population or abundance in terms of the number of individual organisms involved at each level in a food chain. This shows the number of organisms in each trophic level without any consideration for their individual size or biomass. The pyramid is not necessarily upright. Here is a two example: aquatic ecosystem and terrestrial ecosystem. Second, biomass pyramid shows the amount of living matter in a food chain, total dry weight of the organism in a food chain. Here is the diagram for biomass pyramid. Here is include a producer, herbivorous, primary carnivorous, and top carnivorous. It is all in the uh, in the kg in unit. A pyramid of biomass shows the total biomass of the organism involved at each trophic level of an ecosystem. These pyramids are not necessarily upright. There can be lower amount of the biomass at the bottom of the pyramid if the rate of primary production per unit mass is high. Here is the same example: aquatic ecosystem and terrestrial ecosystem. Third point, energy pyramid. The amount of energy that moves from one feeding level to another in a food chain. The greatest amount of energy is available at the producer level. The least amount of energy available to going to be top of the food chain. Here is the energy pyramid diagram. Uh, Here is the energy pyramid diagram. First is the producer, next primary consumer, secondary consumer, and tertiary consumer. Here is the include the plants, animals, and such a microorganism. Thank you to all. It is a, this is from my side. Thank you.